The head of Women's Group Aware says that the current review of women's issues in Singapore should take into account how to inculcate positive masculine norms in men. One suggestion is that a study on men and boys be commissioned to promote such norms. 2021 has been declared the year of celebrating SG women.
We need to understand masculinity in Singapore, and we need to understand its implications on gender equality, violence against women, and men's health issues. The study should include an action plan on how we engage with men and boys to promote healthy masculine norms in Singapore. Areas that should be included in the study should include areas like equality in the family, intimate partner relationships, health and well-being.
Today also marks the 60th anniversary of the Women's Charter. In a lecture organised by the Institute of Policy Studies, she suggests that the setting up of a dedicated support centre for men. This can be a space where they can manage their vulnerabilities and gain healthy acceptance instead of feeling pressured to conform to unrealistic gender norms. On sex education, she calls on the government to be bold in its review and implement a comprehensive programme for all schools based on best practices. For a look at how the Women's Charter has evolved and how it can remain relevant moving forward, we've brought in family lawyer Beatrice Yeo. She's the founder of Yeo and Associates. Beatrice, stay with us while we first take our viewers through some of the key milestones. Well, the Act was conceived in 1961 to give rights to women and protect the vulnerable. For example, women and girls who were sold into vice. It also upheld monogamy and outlined the rights and duties of people within a marriage. The Charter was amended about 2 decades later to fine-tune divorce proceedings. Now, under the amendment, couples had to cite one of these 5 facts to prove what's called the irretrievable breakdown of their marriage. Then, in 1996, the Act was amended again to ban same-sex marriages, although those involving a person who has undergone a sex change is recognised. A new section was also added to protect against family violence, which is defined as knowingly placing a family member in fear or hurt and continual harassment. Beatrice, good evening. We hear of cases of family violence that go under the radar. What's it like working with victims, and why don't more of them come forward?
In fact, many men and women are aware of the basic rights to be protected from violence, not to suffer bodily hurt, whether from a family member or a stranger. And many would come forward to report to the police or family service officers as the first instance to stop the violence from continuing, and thereafter to apply to the Family Justice Court for a protection order. So usually where victims decided to apply to court for protection order, divorce usually follows. Many women nowadays have lower tolerance for violence against them, and they would take actions. Victims of lesser financial means may nevertheless have ability to search for help from local community centres, family service centres, MSF and other women protection agencies.
Beatrice, this particular piece of legislation was amended just a few years ago. As Singapore looks into women's issues this year, is there perhaps scope to improve on those efforts?
The law does provide adequate protection for victims of violence by way of deterring future incidences from happening. However, it does not punish the person who commits an act of violence until the second time happens. So until then, would the perpetrator be punished by way of imprisonment or other remedies? I think the law ought to consider penalizing the first-time perpetrator with some kind of repercussion like jail or fine. Another improvement that could be made to legislation may be to impose the remedy of monetary compensation to the victims.
All right, let's get back to our timeline. About 10 years ago, the Women's Charter was amended to make young couples, those below 21 mostly, to attend a marriage preparation program. Parents with kids who were getting a divorce also had to go through mandatory mediation and counselling. And then 5 years ago, amendments were passed to reflect family trends. For example, couples have to attend a mandatory parenting program to protect their children before they file for divorce. Men were also allowed to apply for maintenance from their ex-wives if there is a clear need. Now, on divorce, the Social and Family Development Ministry is now consulting the public for views on what it calls an amicable option. Now, this doesn't require couples to prove a fault-based fact, which, if you'll recall, was introduced back in 1980. So, Beatrice, from being involved in divorce proceedings, are there ever amicable splits in such a situation? And if they are in the minority, how will prospective changes actually alter how things are done in the courtroom, but also in real relationships?
We have in the recent years seen surge in the mindset of divorcing couples to go for, or at least try, uncontested divorce. What would mean they would discuss between themselves on how to work out post-divorce financial matters, how to care for the children in their own ways, and how much maintenance to pay. And they must be 100% in agreement with the terms before it can be considered an uncontested divorce. Many would choose to achieve settlement with the help of the lawyers who are willing to hold discussion sessions for them and to guide them along. Or they attempt private or court-directed mediations. The changes in the family justice rules that made it mandatory for divorcing couples who have children and unresolved issues during the divorce proceedings to attend judge-led mediation sessions. So these sessions have achieved great success in helping numerous families achieve settlements. Where parties work out their own settlement terms, they may experience a higher sense of satisfaction and achievement, and many parents would become friends for the sake of co-parenting.
Well, Beatrice, the Women's Charter, historically, it is a fairly broad piece of legislation. We've seen that it has been amended numerous times in the past, but it also needs to be updated to reflect how norms are changing. Where do you see this act going in the near future?
Well, as of now, I think the government and the community partners have thought out the amendments well, and many changes have come along well, like introducing and increasing the number of divorce support specialist agencies, provision of spousal maintenance for even incapacitated husbands, mandatory mediation and counseling. The Act is promoting therapeutic justice, that's what they call, by way of reconciliatory counseling, dispute resolution methods. It is the era now of mediation and settlement, and lesser adversarial and litigious fights in the court.
Beatrice, thank you very much for joining us and for your views this evening. That was Beatrice Yeo, their family lawyer and founder of Yeo and Associates.